A nervous girl walks into the clinic, only to realize the man about to examine her is a millionaire. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into today's story. After that first appointment, Mia couldn't shake the memory of Dr. James Miller. She tried to convince herself it was just another visit to the doctor, but there was something about him that lingered in her mind. It wasn't just the suit or his calm demeanor. It was the way he made her feel heard, something she wasn't used to in her hectic, often stressful life. Over the next few days, Mia couldn't help but wonder about him, about the casual mention of his other business ventures. What kind of doctor had business ventures? What kind of man was he really? Her curiosity gnawed at her as she went about her daily routine, the waitressing job, the bills piling up, the empty apartment she called home. Life had been hard lately, but she managed to push through. As the week went on, Mia tried to put thoughts of Dr. Miller out of her mind. It was hard, though, when his kindness had stuck with her, but she didn't have the time or energy to dwell on it. One afternoon, Mia was working the lunch shift at the small diner she worked at when she noticed a familiar face walk through the door. It was Dr. Miller, his dark suit now replaced with a casual shirt and jeans, looking just as composed as ever. Mia blinked, unsure if she was seeing things. Why would he be here? The diner wasn't exactly the kind of place someone like him would frequent. He spotted her and gave her a small wave, the same kind, warm smile she remembered from their first meeting. "Mia, right?" he said, approaching the counter. "Fancy seeing you here." Mia stood frozen for a moment before snapping out of her daze. Hey, Dr. Miller. What can I get you?" she asked her, voice betraying a hint of nervousness. She was still trying to get used to seeing him outside of the clinic, in a much more casual setting. "Just a coffee for now. Black, no sugar," he replied, still with that calm tone that seemed to put her at ease. Mia nodded quickly, already reaching for a mug. She couldn't help but notice how comfortable and natural he seemed, even in this ordinary setting. It was like he didn't belong here, and yet, there he was. As she poured his coffee, he continued to chat with her in the easy way that only he seemed to be able to do. "How's everything been going?" he asked, his gaze focused on her as if he truly cared. Mia hesitated. She wasn't sure if she should open up, but for some reason, she found herself doing it anyway. "It's been rough," she admitted, pouring the coffee into the mug. "I'm working a lot, just trying to stay afloat. Rent's due soon, and the bills keep piling up." She smiled weakly, trying to downplay how stressed she really was. Dr. Miller's eyes softened, and he nodded in understanding. "I can imagine how tough that must be," he said gently. "But don't be too hard on yourself. You're doing the best you can." Mia was taken aback by his sincerity. Most people just brushed off her struggles, but he was different. It wasn't just small talk. It felt real. After a moment of silence, he spoke again. "You know, Mia, I've been thinking about you. Your art, I mean." Mia froze, the cup in her hands suddenly feeling much heavier. "What about my art?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She hadn't told him about her passion for painting. It wasn't something she shared with people often. "You mentioned it briefly during our appointment," he said, his voice calm, but with a hint of enthusiasm. "You said you dream of opening a studio, right? I think that's incredible." Mia blinked, a little shocked. She had mentioned it so briefly during the examination, and yet he remembered. "I didn't think you'd remember that," she said, trying to brush it off. Dr. Miller smiled, but there was something deeper in his expression now, something more meaningful. "Of course I remember. You have talent, Mia. I can tell. I've seen a lot of things in my life. But real passion for something, it's rare." Mia felt a wave of warmth spread through her chest. She hadn't realized how much she needed someone to believe in her. She had spent so much time just surviving that she had forgotten what it felt like to be seen for her dreams, not just her struggles. Just as she was about to say something in response, the door to the diner opened with a loud jingle, and a customer walked in, interrupting their conversation. Mia quickly turned to greet the new arrival, trying to keep her composure. But as she glanced back at Dr. Miller, she saw something shift in his eyes, something she couldn't quite place. He was already standing up, ready to leave. "It was good to see you, Mia," he said, a smile on his face, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'll see you around." With that, he walked out of the diner, leaving Mia standing there, wondering what had just happened. She couldn't help but feel like this was more than just a casual visit. There was something in the way he spoke to her, something deeper, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. As the afternoon dragged on, Mia couldn't stop thinking about Dr. Miller. His kindness, his belief in her. She didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning of something that would change her life forever. It had been a few days since Mia's unexpected encounter with Dr. Miller at the diner, and she still couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. He had been kind to her, and that kindness had left an impression on her that she couldn't ignore. She found herself wondering more about him, about who he really was. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that she didn't know anything about him beyond his name and that he was a doctor. But there was something in the way he looked at her, the way he had spoken about her art, that felt different. It wasn't just casual small talk. He had seen something in her that she had long forgotten to believe in herself. The thought of Dr. Miller and his quiet confidence seemed to follow her wherever she went. On her breaks at work, she would think back to his gentle words, reminding her that she was more than just her struggles. His belief in her seemed like a spark she hadn't realized she needed. One morning, Mia was running late for her shift at the diner. She had overslept, and now she was rushing around, grabbing her things in a hurry. As she walked out the door, her phone buzzed with a new notification. She glanced at the screen, expecting it to be another reminder about bills or a message from her roommate, but it wasn't. It was from Dr. Miller. The message was brief. "Mia, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to let you know that I've been thinking about your art. I'd love to help you take the next step toward your dream. Would you be interested in talking more?" Dr. Miller. Mia's heart skipped a beat. She had never expected anything like this. She had barely spoken about her dreams to anyone, let alone a man she had met only once. And now, here he was, reaching out to her, offering help. She stood there for a moment, staring at the screen, unsure of what to make of it. Was this real? Was he serious? She didn't know what to think, but there was something inside her that told her she couldn't let this opportunity slip by. Taking a deep breath, Mia typed a quick reply. "Thank you, Dr. Miller. I'd love to talk more. When would be a good time to meet?" She hit send, her hands shaking slightly as she put the phone back in her pocket. The rest of the day felt like a blur. Mia couldn't concentrate on anything. Her thoughts kept drifting back to that message, to the possibility that someone, especially someone like Dr. Miller, saw something in her. It was too good to be true, wasn't it? She had always been skeptical of offers that seemed too generous, too perfect. But something about Dr. Miller felt different. He didn't seem like the type to make empty promises. As soon as her shift ended, Mia rushed home, her mind racing with questions. What did he mean by helping her take the next step? What was he offering? And why was he doing this? She couldn't figure it out. Later that evening, Dr. Miller called her, his voice warm and familiar. "Mia, I'm glad you replied. I'd like to meet with you to discuss what I had in mind." "How? About tomorrow afternoon? I know a quiet cafe we could meet at." Mia agreed, her stomach flipping with a mix of excitement and nervousness. The next day, she found herself sitting in a small cafe, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee as she waited for Dr. Miller. She was early, but her nerves made the time feel like it was crawling by. When Dr. Miller arrived, he was dressed casually, yet still somehow managed to exude confidence and composure. He smiled when he saw her and walked over to her table. "Mia, it's good to see you again," he said, sitting down across from her. "How have you been?" Mia smiled back, trying to calm the nervous energy swirling inside her. "I've been all right," she said, her voice a little shaky. "Thank you for reaching out. I wasn't sure what to expect." Dr. Miller nodded, understanding. "I know it must be a bit surprising, but I've been thinking about your potential. Your art is something special, Mia, and I want to help you make it a reality." Mia's heart raced. Was this really happening? "I don't know what to say," she admitted, feeling overwhelmed. "I've always dreamed of opening a studio, but it feels so out of reach. I've never had the resources or the support to make it happen." Dr. Miller leaned forward, his expression serious but kind. "I want to offer you that support. I'm involved in several charitable projects, and I've been looking for a way to give back. I believe you can make a real impact with your art. I want to help you create a space where you can bring that dream to life. Whether it's funding, connections, or just advice, I'm here to assist you in any way I can." Mia was speechless. This wasn't what she had expected. She had expected a polite conversation, maybe a few tips, but this was more than she had ever imagined. "But why me?" she finally managed to ask. "Why are you doing this?" Dr. Miller smiled softly. "Because I believe in you. Because I've seen people with potential like yours waste away because they didn't have the opportunity to chase their dreams. I want to make sure that doesn't happen to you." Mia felt a lump form in her throat. She had never felt so seen, so understood. She had always believed that success was for other people, not for someone like her. But here was a man who saw her, not just her struggles, but her potential. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Thank you so much." Dr. Miller reached across the table, placing a hand over hers. "You don't have to thank me. You've earned it." As the conversation continued, Mia felt a sense of hope rise in her chest, a hope she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. She didn't know where this would lead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like anything was possible. The next few weeks were a whirlwind for Mia. What started as a simple meeting in a cafe turned into a life-changing opportunity. Dr. Miller's offer was too big to ignore, and Mia found herself working alongside him, exploring what it meant to truly pursue her dreams. With his support, things began to change for her, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe in something bigger than just getting by. Dr. Miller had introduced her to his network of artists, investors, and philanthropists, and slowly, the dream of opening her own art studio began to feel less like an impossible fantasy and more like a real possibility. There were still challenges, of course. Mia wasn't used to this world of high-powered meetings and big decisions, but Dr. Miller was always there, guiding her and making sure she didn't get lost in it all. As the days passed, Mia found herself growing more confident, and with each step, she moved closer to her goal. One afternoon, as Mia worked late in her tiny apartment on sketches for her new studio, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Dr. Miller. "I've set up a meeting with a potential investor tomorrow. He's very interested in your art. Are you ready?" Mia read the message twice, her heart racing. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. She had prepared for this day, but now that it was here, the nerves were almost overwhelming. She had been to galleries, she had shown her work to friends, but this was different. This was a real opportunity to make her dream a reality. She quickly typed a response. "I'm ready. Thank you, Dr. Miller. I won't let you down." Mia spent the rest of the night refining her portfolio, making sure everything was perfect. She couldn't afford to mess this up. The next day, she arrived at the meeting location, an upscale office building downtown. It was nothing like the diner she had worked in, nothing like the cramped apartment she lived in. It felt like a world away from everything she had ever known. She was nervous as she stepped into the building, but a part of her felt excited, too. When she arrived in the conference room, Dr. Miller was already there, sitting across from a man in a sharp suit, who stood as soon as Mia entered. "Mia, this is Mr. Carter. He's the one I told you about, the investor interested in your work." Mr. Carter extended his hand with a smile, and Mia took it, trying her best not to let her nerves show. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mia," he said, his voice warm but businesslike. "I've heard a lot about your art. I'm excited to see it for myself." As they sat down, Mia could feel the weight of the moment. Dr. Miller had been right. This was a big opportunity. Mr. Carter asked her about her artistic journey, her vision for the studio, and what she hoped to achieve. She spoke with passion, her earlier nerves slowly melting away as she described the art she loved to create and the dream of a space where other artists could come together. Mr. Carter seemed intrigued, nodding along as she spoke. When she finished, he looked at her thoughtfully. "I can see you've put a lot of thought into this," he said. "I think you have something special, Mia. I'd be happy to invest in your studio." Mia's heart leaped. She couldn't believe it. She had done it. The dream was finally becoming a reality. As she left the meeting, Mia felt a mixture of disbelief and joy. Dr. Miller was waiting for her outside, his usual calm demeanor giving way to a rare smile. "You did great," he said. "This is just the beginning." Mia couldn't find the words to express how grateful she felt. "Thank you," she said softly. "I don't know how to repay you for all of this." Dr. Miller smiled again. "You don't need to. Just keep doing what you love, Mia. That's all the thanks I need." As she walked home that evening, Mia felt a sense of accomplishment she had never known before. The weight of her struggles, the doubts, the uncertainty, all of it seemed to fade away as she looked toward the future. She was no longer just a waitress trying to survive. She was an artist, an entrepreneur, and above all, she was someone who had finally learned to believe in herself. The journey wasn't over, but it had only just begun. And with Dr. Miller by her side, Mia knew that anything was possible. The following weeks were a blur of excitement and hard work for Mia. With Mr. Carter's investment in her art studio secured, everything started to feel more real. She spent her days meeting with contractors, organizing her portfolio, and figuring out how to transform her vision into a tangible space. The dream she had held on to for so long was finally coming together. And yet, there was still one person who had been by her side through it all, Dr. Miller. Their professional relationship had evolved over time. What began as a simple mentor-mentee connection grew into something more meaningful, though neither of them had spoken about it directly. Mia found herself thinking about him more and more, and she wasn't sure what to make of it. He was always there when she needed advice, always checking in on her progress, and offering encouragement when things got overwhelming. He had been a rock for her through every uncertainty. On one of those late evenings when Mia was working tirelessly in the studio, surrounded by sketches and construction blueprints, her phone buzzed. It was Dr. Miller. "I wanted to check in on how you're doing. You're making great progress, but don't forget to take care of yourself too. We need to celebrate soon, Mia. You've earned it." She smiled at his message, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. He always knew just what to say. Mia quickly replied, "Thank you, Dr. Miller. You've been such a big part of this. I couldn't have done it without you." A few days later, Dr. Miller invited her to dinner to celebrate. Mia hesitated at first, unsure of what it meant. She had become so accustomed to seeing him as a mentor, someone who helped her navigate her dreams, but this felt different. They had always maintained a professional boundary, and she wasn't sure if this dinner would cross that line. But when the night arrived, Mia found herself standing in front of a restaurant she'd only seen in magazines, sleek, elegant, the kind of place where the lighting was dim and the wine list was pages long. She took a deep breath before entering, telling herself it was just a celebration, nothing more. When she walked inside, Dr. Miller was already there, waiting for her at a table by the window. His suit, as always, looked impeccable, and his smile made Mia's heart flutter. "Mia, you look beautiful," he said, standing as she approached. She smiled, feeling her nerves ease a little. "Thank you. This place is incredible," she said, glancing around at the lavish interior. "It's one of my favorites," he replied, his voice warm and inviting. They sat down, and for a while, the conversation flowed easily. They talked about the studio, the progress Mia had made, and the challenges ahead. But as the evening went on, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this dinner than just a celebration. Dr. Miller seemed more engaged than usual, his gaze lingering on her a bit longer, his compliments a little more personal. It made Mia feel both flattered and unsure. At one point, Dr. Miller set down his wine glass, looking at her with a serious expression. "Mia," he began, his voice softer now, "I've watched you grow so much over these past months. You've not only built your studio, but you've found your voice as an artist. I'm proud of you, more than you know." Mia's heart swelled at his words. She had always doubted herself, always questioned whether she could truly succeed, and hearing him say that felt like a validation she had never expected. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said quietly, feeling the weight of everything they had accomplished together. He smiled, but there was something in his eyes that made Mia's stomach flip. "You've done it, Mia," he said softly. "You've done all the hard work. All I did was show you the way." Mia nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was changing between them. She felt the air shift in the room, the quiet tension that hung between them like an unspoken question. Before she could say anything, Dr. Miller spoke again, this time with a note of vulnerability in his voice. "Mia, I know I've been more than just a mentor to you, and I want to be honest with you about something. Over the past few months, I've come to realize that I care about you, not just as a mentor, but as something more." Mia's breath caught in her throat. She wasn't sure how to respond. The last few months had been filled with so much growth, so many changes, but this was new. She had always admired Dr. Miller, respected him, but had she felt the same way? "Dr. Miller, she began, but he stopped her with a gentle smile. "Mia, I don't want you to feel pressured. I just needed to tell you how I feel. You've changed my life too, in ways you might not even realize. Mia's heart raced. She had never expected this moment, but now that it was here, she couldn't ignore the feelings that had been growing inside her all along. She took a deep breath, meeting his gaze. I care about you too, James, she said quietly, her voice trembling slightly. I just wasn't sure if I was ready for this. There's so much happening, and I didn't want to complicate things. James reached across the table, gently taking her hand in his. Mia, we've already complicated things in the best possible way. We're already a part of each other's lives. Now, let's see where this goes. The words felt like a promise, and for the first time in a long while, Mia allowed herself to feel the hope that had been stirring inside her. They had built something amazing together. Now, it was time to see what came next. In the weeks that followed, Mia and James found themselves growing closer, not just professionally but personally as well. The walls that Mia had carefully built around herself for so long began to crumble, and she found herself trusting him more than she ever thought possible. The studio was moving forward, and Mia was finally beginning to see her dream come to life. There were still challenges to face, but they no longer felt as daunting with James by her side. He continued to be her mentor, her confidant, but as time went on, the relationship between them deepened into something more. They spent their days working on the studio, and their evenings together, talking about everything and nothing. James had become more than just someone who believed in her art. He had become the person she leaned on when things got tough. Despite all the progress, Mia still couldn't quite shake the feeling of hesitation that lingered in the back of her mind. She had always feared getting too close to anyone, especially someone like James, who was so successful, so composed, while she had spent most of her life just trying to survive. But with each passing day, her feelings for him grew stronger, and she couldn't help but wonder if they were both ready for what was happening between them. One evening, after a particularly long day of meetings and site visits for the studio, Mia found herself sitting across from James at a small cafe near the studio. They had been there for a while, enjoying the quiet and each other's company, but Mia couldn't ignore the tension that had been building between them. They had been dancing around it for weeks, the unspoken feelings they both shared, and Mia knew it was time to address it. She looked at James, her heart pounding in her chest. James, I need to talk to you about something, she said, her voice shaky. He looked up from his coffee, concern flickering across his face. What's on your mind, Mia? He asked, his voice soft and understanding. Mia took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. I don't know if I'm ready for this, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. For us, I mean. I've been so focused on my dream, on getting this studio up and running, and she paused, searching for the words to explain herself. And I didn't want to complicate things with us. I didn't want to risk losing everything I've worked for. James reached across the table, gently taking her hand in his. Mia, he said, his voice firm but gentle. I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to be afraid. We're in this together, all of it. The studio, your dreams, and yes, even this. His words were a balm to her soul, soothing the doubts and fears that had been swirling inside her. She had always been afraid of losing herself, of losing control, but now, with him by her side, she could see a future where she didn't have to choose between her dreams and love. I don't want to lose you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. But I don't want to hold myself back either. I'm just scared. James smiled softly, his thumb brushing the back of her hand in a comforting gesture. I'm not asking you to rush, Mia, but what I'm offering is real. You don't have to do this alone anymore. We can build something together. You've already built your dream, and I want to be a part of it. Mia felt the weight of his words sink in, and for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that she didn't have to choose between love and her dreams. She could have both. It wasn't going to be easy, and there would be bumps along the way, but together, they could navigate it all. She looked into his eyes, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. Okay, she said quietly, a small smile tugging at her lips. I'm ready. For everything. That evening, as they walked back to the studio together, Mia felt lighter, as though a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. The road ahead was still uncertain, but now she knew she wouldn't have to face it alone. She had James, and with him, she could accomplish anything. The following weeks were filled with even more progress on the studio, and Mia's heart grew fuller with each passing day. She found herself more confident in her decisions, knowing that James was there to support her every step of the way. One day, as she stood in the middle of the studio, looking at the space she had once only dreamed of, she realized just how far she had come. She had built this, and now, with James by her side, she was ready for whatever the future held. They were no longer just business partners or mentors. They were a team, and together, they were unstoppable. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. The studio was coming together faster than Mia had ever imagined, thanks to the support and resources James had provided. Every day, she watched her dream take shape, from the blank walls to the vibrant artwork that filled the space. What had once seemed like an impossible goal now felt like a reality she was living in. Mia spent most of her time in the studio, overseeing the final touches and ensuring that everything was in place for the grand opening. The pressure was building, but with James by her side, she felt more confident than ever. He continued to be her steady rock, helping with the logistics and always reminding her to take a break when things got too overwhelming. Yet, as the opening day drew closer, Mia couldn't help but feel a sense of unease creeping in. Despite all the progress and support, a small voice inside her still questioned whether she was truly ready for this. She had come so far, but what if it wasn't enough? What if the dream she had worked so hard for didn't live up to her expectations? She had always been afraid of failure, but now it felt more real than ever before. One evening, as they were putting the final touches on the studio, Mia found herself sitting at the desk, staring at the space she had created. James walked in, noticing her silence. "What's on your mind, Mia?" he asked, his voice gentle. Mia hesitated, running a hand through her hair. "I'm just scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if everything I've worked for doesn't work out? What if this isn't enough?" James walked over to her, crouching down beside the desk and taking her hand. "Mia, look at what you've already accomplished. You've built something from nothing. You've turned your dreams into reality. That's more than most people ever achieve." Mia looked up at him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "But what if it's not enough? What if people don't show up? What if the studio fails?" James smiled softly, his eyes filled with reassurance. "Mia, this isn't just about the studio. It's about the journey you've been on and everything you've learned along the way. This studio, this dream, it's just the beginning. Whatever happens, you've already succeeded. You've found your voice, your passion, and you've done it all on your terms." His words hit Mia like a wave, washing away some of the fear that had been building inside her. She had been so focused on the future, on the opening day, that she had forgotten to appreciate how far she had come. She had already won, just by taking the leap and pursuing what she loved. As the days passed and the studio's grand opening drew near, Mia felt herself growing more confident. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but she also knew that she was ready for them. She had James, her team, and the knowledge that she had created something meaningful. The night before the opening, James invited Mia to dinner to celebrate everything they had accomplished. As they sat across from each other in a small restaurant, James raised his glass. "To you, Mia," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "To your dream, and to everything you've built." Mia smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "To us," she said softly, raising her glass in return. "To the journey we've taken together." It was a simple moment, but in that moment, Mia realized just how much James had become a part of her life. Not just as a mentor, not just as a partner in the studio, but as someone who had helped her believe in herself when she had doubts. The grand opening arrived, and the studio was filled with people, artists, investors, friends, and supporters. Mia stood in the center of the room, looking around at the space she had created. It was everything she had dreamed of and more. And as she looked over at James, standing beside her, she knew that this was just the beginning of something even greater. The studio was hers, but it was more than just a place to create. It was a symbol of everything she had overcome, everything she had learned, and everything she had yet to achieve. The doors were open, and Mia was ready to step into the future, knowing that whatever happened, she had already built something incredible. Together with James, she was ready for whatever came next. The weeks following the grand opening of the studio were a mix of excitement and hard work. Mia couldn't believe how quickly everything was falling into place. The studio was thriving, and the artists she had brought in were already filling the space with their work. Each day felt like a new step forward, a chance to grow and evolve. Yet, despite everything going so well, there was still something that weighed heavily on her heart. She had built her dream from scratch, with James by her side every step of the way. But the truth was, Mia had always struggled with the idea of truly letting herself be happy. She had spent so much of her life trying to survive, trying to get by, that things were going well, she wasn't sure how to handle it. She had spent years building walls around herself, convinced that if she let herself get too comfortable, it would all come crashing down. But James, with his steady support and unwavering belief in her, had shown her that it was okay to be happy, that it was okay to take risks, to dream bigger than she ever had before. Still, Mia wrestled with the fear that it might all slip away. One evening, after another successful day at the studio, Mia sat alone at her desk, staring out at the city lights. She had just finished going over some new artist applications and was feeling a bit overwhelmed by the amount of work still ahead of her. Her phone buzzed, breaking her thoughts. It was a text from James. "I'm proud of you, Mia. More than you'll ever know." She smiled at the message, but it didn't take away the doubt that still lingered in her mind. She had always believed that she wasn't meant for this kind of success. She had come from nothing, after all. A waitress, barely scraping by, and now, here she was, running a thriving art studio. It didn't feel real. Just then, the door to the studio opened, and James walked in, looking as calm and composed as ever. He took one look at her, sitting there with a furrowed brow, and walked over to her desk. "Hey," he said softly. "What's going on in that head of yours?" Mia sighed, looking up at him. "I'm just thinking," she said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I keep wondering if I'm really cut out for all of this. What if I mess it up? What if it all falls apart?" James crouched down beside her, his hand resting gently on hers. "Mia," he said, his voice full of warmth and reassurance. "You've already done the hardest part. You've built something incredible, and you've done it because you believed in yourself. Don't doubt that." Mia felt a lump in her throat. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that everything would be okay, but the fear still lingered, creeping up in the quiet moments when she was alone with her thoughts. "I don't know if I'm ready for everything that comes next," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've spent so long just trying to get by. I don't know how to handle it when things go right." James smiled gently, his thumb brushing over her hand in a comforting gesture. "You don't have to have everything figured out right now, Mia," he said. "You've already proven that you're capable of more than you ever thought possible. You're not alone in this anymore. You've got me, and you've got your studio, your art, your vision. Whatever happens next, you're ready. You're stronger than you think." His words hit her with the force of a truth she had been avoiding. She had spent so much of her life doubting herself, never allowing herself to believe that she was worthy of the success she had fought so hard for. But now, with James by her side, she realized that she didn't have to do it all alone. She didn't have to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders. Mia took a deep breath, letting the fear melt away just a little. She wasn't perfect, and she didn't have all the answers, but she had come so far. And that was enough. As she looked at James, she saw something she hadn't fully realized before: love. Not just romantic love, but love that came from respect, admiration, and an unspoken promise to be there for each other, no matter what. They had been through so much together, and yet, they had only just begun. "Thank you," Mia whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "for believing in me." James leaned down and kissed her forehead, a soft, tender gesture that spoke volumes. "I believe in you, Mia, more than you'll ever know." That night, as Mia lay in bed, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. The fear was still there, but it wasn't as overpowering. She had built something incredible, something that was hers, and she had James to thank for reminding her that it was okay to be happy, to take risks, and to believe in herself. Tomorrow would come with its own challenges, but for the first time in a long time, Mia was ready to face them. With James by her side, she knew she could handle whatever came next. Together, they were unstoppable. Months passed, and Mia's studio continued to flourish. The fear she had once felt began to fade into the background, replaced by a growing sense of pride in what she had accomplished. The once small, quiet dream she had held onto for so long was now a thriving space where artists gathered to create, share, and grow. Mia had found not only success, but a new sense of purpose. With James by her side, she realized that life was not about avoiding risks or hiding from challenges. It was about facing them head-on, knowing that no matter what came, she had the strength to rise above it. Their relationship had deepened over time, shifting from mentorship to something more. Every day, they worked together, and every evening, they supported each other. It wasn't always easy, but Mia knew that what they had built together was something worth holding on to. As the months went by, their connection grew stronger. James wasn't just her partner in the studio anymore. He had become a constant in her life, the person she turned to for everything. And Mia had become someone he could trust, someone who had shown him that there was more to life than work and success. One evening, as they were sitting together after another long day at the studio, James turned to Mia with a thoughtful expression. "You know, Mia," he began, "when I first met you, I never imagined we'd be here. I never imagined that I would be so invested in your success, in your dreams. But I'm glad I am." Mia looked at him, surprised by his words. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice soft. "You've taught me something I never knew I needed," James said, his voice gentle. "You've shown me that there's more to life than just business, than just the bottom line. You've reminded me what it means to dream, to create something meaningful. You've made me believe that anything is possible, as long as you have the courage to go after it." Mia's heart swelled at his words, and she reached out to take his hand. "I couldn't have done this without you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You've been there for me from the very beginning, believing in me when I didn't even believe in myself." James smiled, his eyes filled with admiration. "And I'll always believe in you, Mia. You've built something incredible, and I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of us." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared journey settling in between them. The future was still uncertain, but one thing was clear: they were in it together. No matter what challenges they faced, they had already overcome so much. And with each other's support, they knew they could continue to grow and build something even greater. The next day, Mia stood in the studio, looking around at the walls she had once dreamed of filling with art. Now, they were filled with pieces from artists she admired, with work that spoke to the hearts of everyone who walked through the doors. The dream was no longer just hers. It was something they had built together. And it was just the beginning. As the sun set outside, casting a warm glow over the studio, Mia felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had come so far, and yet, there was still so much more to accomplish. With James by her side, there was nothing she couldn't face. They had built a life, a future, a dream together, and as she looked ahead, Mia knew that whatever came next, they would face it as a team. Together, they were unstoppable,